Alright guys, welcome back again. Goodbye my friends. If you are interested, Hedwig, I will teach you how to play one day. All you have to do is ask. She gave me a smile and I left down the long passage of barrels. Come to think of it, I might have had an Alexander Neckham book that mentioned she... I don't care. Right. I suppose that's something I could tell Adela sometime. What do you want? Oh, nothing. Just making the rounds. Saying hello to everyone, you know? So this is, what, your third introduction? Sorry. Flora huffed and leaned against the cask lined up along the back wall. Look, I'm sure you're really nice or whatever, but I don't volunteer down here for the conversation, understand? You like to work alone. Finally, someone understands. Well, I'll be working alone a lot too, I think. So, do you have any advice? Advice? Yes. Advice for working alone. Certainly. Well, for starters, you need to be by yourself. Alright? And then once I'm by myself, I'd like to do my work. Why are you asking me for advice anyway? Aren't you like twice my age? I'm barely a decade your senior. I'll have you know. Close enough. Marta had been right. I tried to change the subject to maintain composure. This is certainly a lot of wine. Yes, as you can see, I have a lot of work to do. Alone. Is the wine here good? I wouldn't know. I haven't gotten to try any. This batch will be the first the Superior has allowed me to taste. We must have a large vineyard nearby. These aren't all ours. Oh, really? Where'd the other casks from? Dunno. Ah, some rich guy probably. Maybe this is a good environment for wine storage. Good for bringing out the flavor or whatever. I see. Well, I shall leave you to it then. Thank you. It was nice chatting with you. Yeah, nice meeting you for the third time. I turned away to leave. I had just about enough of that conversation. I'd made it halfway back to the rows of barrels when I heard Flora call out to me. Why did you want Catherine II's job so bad? I didn't. Really? Yes. I promise. I turned to look at her. She was eyeing me up and down. I tried to give her as defiant a stare as I could muster in return. Weird way of showing it. Breaking a 20-year vow to take a dead woman's work. I wanted to tell her about Catherine's business in my window. I wanted to tell her about how the Superior had practically forced me to do this. I wanted to tell her that I was trying to help heal the wound that was making her act this way towards me. But I didn't. I couldn't. If you want to put it that way, it sure feels like that way. How am I putting it has nothing to do with it? So it must seem. With that, I turned around again and left down the croft. I wandered the house for a bit, trying to gather my thoughts. Adela was certainly passionate about chess. But was that really what the conversation I had walked in on had been about? Surely Adela had been here long enough to know Flora didn't like being bothered. She had made that clear to me immediately after all. It must have been something more important than that. No. This wasn't going to work if I started looking for reasons to suspect everyone every time I encountered them. I was going to need to strike a careful balance between searching for the answers and letting them come to me slowly. See, that's a smart plan. I'd go mad otherwise. Well, more mad. I stepped onto the outside path that led past the kitchen. I walked past the rectory where we'd all met for luncheon. I followed the little path around the grounds. Eventually, I came to the side of the chapel. I stood back and gazed at the building, taking it all in. There was a pile of rubble next to the chapel, a blemish on an otherwise picturesque scene. Bits of splintered wood stuck out in odd angles, but they were rotted through. The stone itself was quite weathered as well. It looked perhaps as if extension to the church had been planned but forgotten. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed movement. Oh, hello there. Ah, Sister Margaret. I was just taking a stroll around the grounds. That's a good way to pass the time. Lots of nooks and crannies to explore around here. Yes, it certainly seems it. I found myself quite overwhelmed. I think I might know most of the interesting passages and doors and whatnot around here. It's a little boggling. But honestly, I doubt anyone here knows every little secret. If you find anything interesting, let me know. We can compare notes. I will. What's your favorite? I don't think I know you well enough to share that just yet. Oh, nothing against you. We can work up to my favorite. I can tell you my second favorite if you'd like. Oh, go on then. If you ever get hungry in the middle of the night, there's a secret way into the stores through the cellar. Really? Where? Now, where's the fun in that? Fair enough, I suppose. It'll mean more if you find it yourself. Exploring this place is very enriching. You'll have a great time figuring it out, I promise. I'll keep that in mind. By the way, at luncheon, I would like nothing more than to skip over whatever topic you were hoping to breach here. Ask me what my favorite psalm is, or if I play any instruments. Anything else. Do you play any instruments? I'm not too shabby at the lute now that you mention it. Wow, I never played any instruments. I imagine that's obvious, come to think of it. You should try it. Catherine would have shoved one into your hands the minute you stepped out of your cell if she was still here, I'd wager. Really now? That's more or less how it was for me when I got here. Hardly a minute after having her hair shorn, she was asking me all kinds of things. What I like to do, what I want out of life. Nobody got past it without trying something new. She sounds like she was very inspirational. She certainly had the stars in her eyes. May she rest in peace. May she rest in peace. Well, this has been as pleasant as it's been, Maudlin. I'll speak to you later, Hedwig. Until next time, Margaret. Ooh. She gave me a quick bow of the head and continued off down towards the path I'd come from. We're on the west grounds right now. After taking another good look at the chapel, I looped around behind it. There I could see rows upon rows of bushes and hedges, flower beds and vegetables. There were vines crawling up the walls of the building, surrounding the vast network of plants. This was Darcy's domain then. In fact, I could see her and Eustace beside the door to what looked like a larger shed or some sort of hall. I picked up my pace. Excuse me. At the very least, these two would be nicer to me than Flora was. Or so I thought. Eustace looked slightly irritated when she noticed me. She stood up and brushed herself off as I approached. Hello, I wanted to say thank you for the gate. Now's not a great time. What? Is something wrong? No, just, I'm busy now. I glanced at Darcy. I realized she was looking even more out there than usual. Is she okay? Yes, as long as I'm watching her anyway. What is she? Darcy was pacing around in a small circle. Her head was tilted skyward and she looked blissful. She's having a vision. She's what? Rows of bookshelves. Rows and rows of bookshelves. Rows and rows and rows of bookshelves. Hold on. Eustace stepped down to pick up a small ledger and quill she'd been sitting with. The reader chooses its book. It is a book the reader has not read before. The reader chooses a book and opens the book. What's the book, Darcy? Ink lashes like flame, and they hurt the reader so. But the reader pays no mind. Readers read and read, the reader does, until the reader eyes are burned, until every page is turned. Reader, read, the reader does. Yes, keep going. Stay with me, Darcy. Or Darce. How can you be so calm about this? She's had this one before. Readers read and others ask. We ask reader what they read. What if they've read what we need? Reading makes one wise indeed. It's so hard for me to read this font. Readers read and others ask. Even if the flames do lash. Eustace scribbled all of this down. She seemed perfectly collected. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. All of a sudden, Darcy stopped walking in her little circle. She began to wobble and tears started rolling down her cheeks. Her blissful smile was gone. This is new. What did you see, Darcy? What's happening? Fire. Yes, flames, you said that already. Anything else? Goat. Fire. Goat. Fire goat. Forgot. I forgot what I was talking about. Just another one of your visions? I'd say that tincture was a success. Oh god. Oh good. Was it a nice one? It's hard to tell. She touched her face and looked slightly surprised by how damp her cheeks were. Was I crying because I saw the face of God and it was beautiful? Or was I crying because it was bad? We'll talk about it later. Darcy, how long have you been having visions? For a long time. We really need to be going. Yeah, I need to go sit down for a bit after having one of my vision tinctures, or everyone says I stay too odd. So, bye. I'll talk to you when I'm less odd. Eustace took Darcy by the arm and coaxed her back towards the main building of the Abbey. I stood there stunned. I had of course read about mystics, but I'd never dreamed that I would meet one, let alone see one in the middle of having a vision. I must admit that I had not pictured Darcy as being quite so close to God as that. It was a little humbling. Then again, if Marjorie Kemp could be so gifted, why couldn't Darcy? I spent some time alone in the garden. I could see rows of carrots, juicy-looking squashes, and plump parsnips. There were plenty of other things I didn't recognize too. I just realized how limited my diet had been in my cell, and I salivated at the thought of trying some new food. The flower beds were quite beautiful, and a mix of pleasant smells filled the air. I took a little stroll to the flower bushes. There were all manner of colors and shapes that I couldn't identify. I stopped to smell a few. They were all lovely. There was one awkward, spindly-looking bush at the end of one of the hedgerows that looked out of place. It was slightly skeletal. The leaves looked too big for the plant. It drooped a little. As I got closer, I realized there were little berries on the ends of the flowers. Against all better judgment, I reached a hand out, curious to see what they tasted like. Don't touch that. Goodness, you made me jump. Sorry. I wondered if you were still in the garden and came looking for you. I'm sure it's all very exciting, but don't go touching things willy-nilly. That was very rude of me. I apologize. It's fine. Just don't touch that plant whatever you do. Is it poisonous? Extremely. Why on earth is it here? I'm no botanist, so I can't explain it properly, but the short of it is that it's useful in small doses. How on earth could poison be useful? Well, Moira says it can be used to make a good painkiller for one thing. It was Catherine the First who begged Darcy to start tending it though. Apparently it's all the rage in Italy. You drop a little bit of extract in your eyes to make them look bigger, I suppose. Shinier. That's absurd. You won't get any argument from me, but that's why it's here. Darcy really does a wonderful job with this garden. She's brilliant. Darcy's our little Hildegard. Von Bingen. Sorry, is that someone you... Oh no, don't worry. I've read Hildegard. That makes sense. An expert with plants and a real visionary. Darcy's like her several ways. Excuse me. That's right. Is she doing well after all that? She's fine. She tries to have them on purpose. She has all sorts of different concoctions she's been tinkering with to try and enhance and understand her visions for years. That's incredible. It's certainly interesting. Did Darcy know Catherine very well? Catherine the Second, you mean? Yes, she thought Darcy was a genius. How nice. Catherine the Second had a way of making everyone feel special. Sometimes to a fault if you ask me. She encouraged everyone to try new things to see if they had any hidden talents. That pudding you made for luncheon was very nice, by the way. Was that? Oh no, that's recipe all to me. Well, all me and my books. I see. Well, it was delicious. I'm glad. Anyway, my point is, Catherine II was someone who couldn't leave well enough alone. She had many admirable traits. I miss her dearly. But it's true. I don't follow. Eustace stared at me pointedly from behind her large glasses. Be careful, Hedwig. With that, she turned on her heel and left the garden. Beads of cold sweat were building on my forehead. I felt knocked entirely off balance. After a few moments of stunned silence, I staggered back to the flower beds towards the Abbey. It was really chilly outside now. It was getting later in the afternoon, and I presumed the dinner bell would be ringing at any moment. Eustace's words were still bouncing around in my head. I hope that a meal might straighten me out the way luncheon had earlier in the day. As I walked through the cloister, I remember what the superior had said about the sword being left as something of a monument to Catherine. I stepped onto the cloister grass and walked up to the sword somewhat apprehensively. Be careful, Hedwig. What had she meant? Did she know? I'm curious about that too. I'm like, why would she say that? Like, it's either she knows, she may know who the murderer is, and she's just being wary because she doesn't have the... She's probably cautious or scared to even admit who it is, because she might get, you know, killed herself. But, who's to say? But the fact that she said be careful has to mean something. She might know important information. The sword was indeed clean. It looked well weathered, but there was no blood upon the blade. I dared not touch it, but I could tell the edge was still decently sharp. Be careful, Hedwig. How many of them knew? If Eustace suspected I was up to something, surely she would tell the others. The secret might already be out there. I heard a rustle of wings above me. Well, that's also true. It might not just be one person. It could be, you know, more than one working together, which would suck heavily. I jerked my head up to see. Cloaked in shadow, the barest glint of eyes. Hold on, let me see. I think I see it. Oh, I think I see the eyes. It's there. Those two dots over there, guys. Watching me from above. Creepy. Oh, there he's gone. They disappeared into the shadows as soon as I was sure they were there. I scurried away from the sword, feeling a sudden rush of bravery. I started running towards the nearest staircase that might lead me to whoever had been watching me. I can't believe she was so bold enough to do that, though, and collided directly with Angela. I am so sorry. There is to be no running in the halls. Did the superior not tell you that? No. I really am sorry. Huh. What are you in such a hurry for anyway? I was in the cloister, and I thought I saw someone watching me, so I was running to see who it was. What on earth for? To see, I don't know, if they wanted to talk to me perhaps. Ah, of course. No one here seems to be able to resist your riveting conversation skills, I've noticed. What an exciting first day you've had. Has it been fun? Being paraded around like a daughter the Duke is desperate to marry off? Spare me. I can see right through your little act. I don't know. Well, I do. I know exactly why you've joined us all of a sudden. I'll take your silence as confirmation. You may have tricked the others, but I'm no fool. If that's the case, then why haven't you told them? Because I do not care a whit what the others think. I just don't like meddlers, and I know a meddler when I see one. The superior may not care about how this place is run, but I do. I will not let her entrust this place to a complete outsider. What? I was at a total loss here, but at least I could be honest in my confusion. You think I'm to become the next superior? I'm not even close to the most senior sister here. As if tradition matters here, why else would you have been left free from your cell? Why else would you be taking meetings alone with her? I'm just learning to be the new chronicler. Yes, the superior seems to think chroniclers make good superior material. She's a fool, but a determined fool, I'll give her that. She cares a lot about this place, clearly. Hence why she's set a mouse loose in the kitchen. She stalked past me, turning her nose up. I stood there shaking with anger for a moment. I wheeled around as she reached the bottom of the stairs. Who killed Catherine? I know I shouldn't have asked so bluntly, but I felt confident enough in Angela's ignorance to barrel ahead. James Foreman, a nasty little stable hand who had his eyes on her ever since he first started making deliveries to the Abbey. She rejected his advances, so he hacked her head off with a sword he carried in his cart for protection on the road. It was brutal, random, and obscene, like most crimes are. I cannot believe that. You never met her. Why do you care? It is my job to care. Huh. Not yet it isn't. I was fuming, but I did feel a little twinge of satisfaction realizing that I had thrown Angela off the real reason for being here. I knew she was wrong about Catherine, though. There were too many strange things going on, too much unsettling evidence to the contrary. Evidence like, well, I didn't actually have any evidence, did I? I just have whispers. Whispers tell me that something was very, very wrong here. I had agreed with the superior out of a mixture of obedience, pity, but now I was itching to find the truth and rub Angela's stuck-up face in it. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits. Supper that night was a lot more subdued than luncheon. We all gathered around the rectory table, but the conversation didn't spark the same way. People seemed worn out from the various tasks of the day. Small clusters of chatter broke out between little groups of people across the table, but mostly people ate their meals in silence. I was content with this state of affairs, at least for the moment. My plate was laden with wonderful-looking food from Darcy's garden, as well as a generous piece of chicken breast. I wolfed it all down in silence, trying to avoid eye contact from Angela, who was seated next to the superior at the head of the table once again. Cecilus's book on chess is supposed to be quite interesting. So I've heard. Eustace, do we have a translated copy? In English or Castilian, I mean. I would have to check. I'll take a look and give it to you Give it to you later. Spectacular. For all I know, that talk about chess and a book on chess isn't about chess at all. Might just be code. After supper was vespers. You'll be glad to know I didn't cough up any horrible black bile in the chapel this time. Excuse me. We chanted the evening prayers. It all felt very regimented. There was a certain peace to the proceedings. My head felt pleasantly empty and soft afterwards, free of the confusion and rage I had been alternating between earlier. When the office of vespers was concluded, people trickled out of the chapel one by one. Left to my own devices, I wasn't really sure what to do. I followed everyone out of the building into the cloister, but nobody turned to ask what I was doing, if I'd like to join them, or anything of the sort. It felt like I'd already ceased to be one of any interest to the congregation. Invisible. I trailed behind everyone. I wasn't actually sure what I wanted. Did I want to be included? Would that make my job harder or easier? Would it make me feel better or worse? Now or when it came time to accuse one of them of the unthinkable? I looked across the cloister and stopped dead in my tracks. The sword was gone. I ran across the grass to where it had stood. It had been right here. I'd seen it. I'd nearly touched it. The sword is gone! Hello? Hello? I called out, but everyone had dispersed already. I looked down at the grass and then with a jolt looked up to where I'd seen the mysterious figure earlier. They weren't there. I stared at the slight divot in the grass where the blade had been stuck into the earth for a little while. Superior. She had to be warned. Superior! Mother Superior, The door yanked open suddenly. Get in. Now. Are you quite mad? I was sent for you when I'm prepared to talk. If you're seen coming in and out of my office at will. I know, I'm sorry, but this is really important. You're putting both of us at risk. I apologize, but I'm making careful preparations as to not rouse suspicions. Someone's taken the sword. The spirit furrowed her brow. The sword in the courtyard. It's gone. I saw it there this afternoon and now it's missing. I know. Huh? I thought about what you'd said after luncheon about leaving a weapon lying around and decided you were completely correct. It was more than a little ghoulish. I told our sacrist to take care of it not long after you left. Eustace? Yes. She's in charge of all the relics and items of interest here, not just the books. Well, what if she's the killer? She has a wicked blade now. A sword that she could have gone and collected whenever she fancied, were that the case. Hedwig, leave the strategizing to me. There's nothing whatsoever suspicious about an abbess asking her sacrist to keep an object under her care. It makes absolutely no difference in the grand scheme of things if Eustace is involved or not. She would have access to the blade either way. Now, if the blade turns out missing or God forbid gets used again, she will be the first person to call on. Please trust that I do think about these matters carefully. I like to play at least a few moves ahead. Moves ahead? What does that mean? Chess terminology. Have you played chess before? No? Excuse me. I'll have Eustace loan you Cecilis' book on the subject. It's really very interesting. I was well and bloody tired of hearing about chess, to tell you the truth. Anyway, you should go. If anyone asks, I was checking up on how your first day went. How did your first day go? I took a deep breath and raised my fingers in the air, ready to let it all out, again like I had in my previous meeting with Superior. However, I thought better of it in the end. Fine. All things considered. Fine. Good. Good. Angela doesn't trust you. Now there's the shock of the century. Anything else? No. Very well then. I shall send for you when I'm ready to speak on these matters again, and to take you to visit the accused. Understood, Abbess. Have a good night, Hedwig. I left. I trudged up the stairs back to the dormitories. I pulled my robes a little tighter around myself. The wind was picking up outside. At the top of the stairs, I could see Eustace and Adela walking through the halls, holding torches and lighting the sconces on the walls near the entrance to the dorms, the library, and the Misericorde. I was somewhat surprised. Oh my. Who's going to be awake to snuff out all those out later? We typically only do the ones up here. This hallway gets a bit of traffic at night. The dorms, the library, and so on. Do not worry about fires though. We put them out before we go to bed. I nodded absentmindedly and continued towards the dorms. I had had a long day. The energy I had received from the bath had almost been entirely spent. I had no idea what the other nuns were planning to do with their night, but all I could think about was my bed. I swung open the door to my little room and plopped face first into the straw mattress. My head hit the pillow with a thunk. Oh, really? What now? I flung my pillow aside to reveal a book. It had no title or adornment on the cover. Medea. But when I opened it, I was greeted by a lovely illuminated title page. Transcribed proudly by Catherine II of Limbarrow for Tor Abbey. For the enigmatic woman in the wall. May she find this most interesting and edifying, despite its pagan origins, with apologies to Hesidius and Euripides in kind. I began to weep first and then sob. Here it was, the play I had been promised all those weeks ago. I cradled it in my arms. I dared not turn past the title page yet. There was something that kept me glued to those words. Little words that had been written just for me. Catherine's handwriting was a little scratchier than mine, but it was full of character. I touched the page gently, running my finger across the page to feel the slight indents where the quill had pressed into the parchment. She hadn't broken her promise to me in the slightest. I thought back to that night she came to my window. How soon after that she had died? How long before Samhain had she planned to give me this? I knew from experience that transcribing anything was no simple task, even if a play was much shorter than the Bible. Oh, what a strange mixture of elated and despair I felt. I had a special gift from Catherine, but I would never be able to share my thoughts in the story with her. I was left with precisely half of an experience, and I would never ever live the other half of it in all my days. It would have to do. Just knowing that Catherine had made this filled me with joy. As I dried my tears, I wondered, who had brought this here for me? I want to say Eustace, because isn't she the librarian? And also the one in charge of, bringing up all the books to her fellow sisters? Nobody knew that I had spoken to Catherine, surely, unless she had told someone while preparing this book. Did I have a secret ally? Someone carrying out Catherine's last wish beyond the grave? Or perhaps Darcy had been right, and I was about to meet a friendly spirit. I fantasized for a few moments about being Medea, alongside some sort of transparent, flickering version of Catherine for a moment, but it was too sad to keep up for very long. I didn't even know what Catherine looked like, and well, ghosts don't exist, of course. I put my pillow back in its place and settled down. I couldn't read the play, not just yet. The whole thing was just sinking in, still. I clutched the book to my chest and drifted off to a much-needed sleep. I awoke with a start some time later. I felt hot and uncomfortable as I rose from my bed. I was too tired and overwhelmed earlier to think to remove my habit before drifting off. I carefully slid the copy of Medea under my bed sheet and stepped out into the dormitory hall.